is up, guys? It's your girl Amira from the Speeds and Milo channel, and today I will be reading you a story that I wrote myself out of my free writing journal from school. Trust me, it's a pretty detailed story. Not at first, but I put better wording sort in the middle. So, I will introduce you the characters and the table of contents. The characters: Dakota, the wolf pup. Appearance: light brown, speckled fur with yellow eyes and a fluffy fur coat. Fang, father of wolf pup. Appearance: dark brown, short fur with teal eyes and abnormally large teeth. Jewel, mother of wolf pup. Appearance: white striped fluffy fur with crystal blue eyes. Moon, aunt of wolf pup. Appearance: gray speckled fur with purple eyes and a ripped ear. Shadow, uncle of wolf pup. Appearance: black fur with hazel eyes and a fluffy tail. Those are all of our characters. And then we just have some hunters in the background who don't really have a name, because they're background characters. Table of Contents, Chapter 1, Dakota, pages 1 through 4. I just wanted to let y'all know that the chapters are pretty short. Don't mind that, though. It's still a good book, in my opinion. Depends on how y'all think it is. Anyways, so, Chapter 2, The Beast, pages 5 through 11. Chapter 3, Meeting Once Again, pages 12 through 17. Chapter 4, The Hunter, pages 18 through 23. Chapter 5, An Unexpected Guess, page 24. Chapter 6, Losing Our Minds, pages 25 through 27. Chapter 7, Reuniting, pages 28 through Chapter 7 Chapter 7 to Chapter 10 will be in Part 2 if y'all want Part 2. If not, just let me know. So, let's get into the book. Chapter 1, Dakota. There was once a world where there were hunters and wolves. This became a terrible problem, and I think you may guess why. I drew a couple pictures in the start, so I'll show them to you. As this became more and more common, there was almost no wolves left, but there was a small wolf pup, Dakota. He was fierce and never gave up. He was smart and quick. He was also very sly and courageous. As he grew, he kept dodging all of the hunters' traps. This made the hunters enraged. The hunters began blaming each other for his escape each time. It got worse. One day, it was raining heavily, and the hunters had zero shelter as they had tore it down the previous day. But despite how rude and violent they had been towards his kind, Dakota took a large leaf off of a tree and covered them with it. That day was the day that they revised with what was left of the wolves. With time, the population of wolves grew more and more. At last, peace was restored, and all was good once again. Chapter 2, The Beast. Here we are again, telling this story once again. But I must say, this time, it is much more odd. After they had revised, another problem had been born. Why I say this was a problem is because it wasn't nice nor calm. If you thought of it as that, you're terribly wrong. And if you can't see the pictures perfectly since they're flipped, that's fine. Yeah, they're not really that important. I don't draw pictures later on in the story anyway, so shows it's not important. For this creature had no good intentions, that's for sure. This beast was something terrifying, something horrible. The wolves were being chased off left and right. But not Dakota. He wouldn't give in to its ways, which led it to attack him. And then those two pictures right there. Due to his terrible state, he could not defend himself. Luckily, the hunters were nearby. They took him to their cabin and bandaged him. He had to stay put in the cabin till he was healed. He didn't like this, so when they weren't looking, he snuck out to find the monster. He flicked his ears as he heard rustling behind him. He had spoke fiercely with great strength, yelling out, "Who's there?" perking his ears up. No response, just silence. This picture and this one. His voice echoed throughout the silent forest, scaring rabbits in the distance. He continued walking, but kept hearing the rustling nearby, but it was louder each time. He stopped walking as he heard the rustling stop seconds later. "Show yourself, you coward!" he yelled, but still no response, only the peaceful chirping of the crickets. He heard the rustling once more as he felt something heavy leap onto him, claws piercing into his back. He whimpered before passing out. The monster left, leaving him in terrible shape. The hunters found him 2 hours later, still passed out. And then this picture of him, of the monster on his back. Chapter 3, Meeting Once Again. 2 weeks later, Dakota had fully recovered and was ready to fight once again. He walked outside and met eyes with the beast. He felt dizzy, as if its stare was trying to hypnotize him. A second later, the beast was on top of him, fighting to the death. Dakota closed his eyes and got ready to accept his fate. He soon felt the weight lift off him. He opened his eyes, thinking he was dead. Soon, he heard a familiar voice. "Run, kid!" He looked up at the wolf and stuttered, "Dad?" Fang then glanced at Dakota, noticing he looked almost identical to him. Without any time to even greet each other, the beast jumped on Dakota's father. Fang stared at the beast and yelled questioningly, "Brother?" The beast backed away, and Dakota gasped as he watched the beast's face become more clear. It was his uncle. "But why?" he cried. Dakota interrupted him, yelling, "Do you really hate me that much?" "No," he yelped as he sighed and started to tell the story. "It was your aunt. She went savage and bit me. I soon felt dizzy and I lost control of my..." The silence grew louder as he passed out. "Uncle?" The silence grew even louder than it had before. Dakota broke down in tears, feeling as if his whole world was falling apart right in front of him. Dakota's father was comforting him when he heard his uncle growl, "Who are you and where am I?" Dakota ran up to hug him, but Shadow pushed him away. It was clear now the uncle had lost his memory. Dakota, due to his age, felt that his uncle was now a threat. He attacked Shadow and they began fighting. Fang sighed as he heard them growling behind him. All of a sudden, it was quiet. Fang's eyes widened as he turned around to find them both gone. The father stared into the dark, eerily silent forest and called for his son. "Son? Shadow?" His voice echoed as he continued yelping for his son and brother. His howls grew louder as no one answered. And this picture right here. I believe this is the last picture I put in the book. Chapter 4, The Hunter. He snapped out of it and ran straight into the forest, still calling out for no one to answer. He started to give up as he let out a soft whine in despair. He heard a yelp and a growl as he stepped forward. "Help!" a small voice cried out. He stepped closer and what he saw left him in shock. A hunter was holding his son and brother who was already passed out. as his son cried again, "Help!" He let out a low growl to catch the hunter off guard. The hunter turned in the direction of the growl, but to his surprise, there was nothing there. Just as the hunter was about to turn around, the wolf lunged at the hunter, pinning him down, claws clenched at his chest. The hunter opened his mouth to scream, but nothing came out. For a moment, there was just silence, but he knew what he had to do. He raised his large paw and growled heavily, swinging his paw in one motion. He slashed the man's chest, putting his brother on his back as he held the now asleep Dakota carefully by the scruff. He glanced at the hunter one last time and smirked proudly as he walked away. About an hour later, he arrived at the cabin doors, and he slammed his paw on the door to let them know he was there. A couple minutes later, a hunter opened the door and invited him in quickly, seeing as he looked a bit irritated. The wolf began to explain everything that had happened that day, leaving the hunters in shock. A wolf had killed a hunter. The hunters took Fang's brother and son to rest in the guest bedroom, as they patched the small wounds Fang had. Fang was just as surprised as the hunters that he was here, but he introduced himself as Dakota's father, and they seemed to calm down. Fang yawned, hopping up on the couch to take a nap as Dakota hobbled down the hall into the living room, plopping down beside one of the hunters. "So, is he all right?" Dakota asked with a worried expression. "He's all right, Dakota," the hunter assured him. "What about Uncle Shadow?" Dakota started. "That we are not sure of," the hunter said in a low tone. Dakota sighed, lowering his head. Suddenly, Shadow walked through the doorway, taking a seat on the red rug. "Uncle Shadow, you're okay!" Dakota gasped out happily, waking his father up. "Huh? Who's okay?" Fang questioned in a drowsy tone. "Uncle Shadow." Dakota sighed slightly, still smiling. "Oh, okay. Wait, what?" Fang yelled, bolting up to the sight of his brother. "Brother, you're all right," Fang smiled, running up to his brother, embracing him. "Well, of course I am," Shadow chuckled, patting Fang on the back. Tears streamed down Fang's face as he sat there hugging his brother for a while. Fang finally released Shadow, still smiling. "But as I was saying before I blacked out," Shadow started, "I lost control of myself after your Aunt Moon bit me." "That makes sense," Dakota replied. Shadow spoke again. "She went mad. I'm not sure exactly how or why, but..." Suddenly, there was clawing on the door along with distressed howling. Chapter 5. An Unexpected Guest. Everyone's heads whipped around to face the door. One of the hunters stood and walked to the door. He opened it, and there stood Dakota's aunt, Moon, with hatred burning in her eyes. Uncle Shadow's eyes widened in fear as the wolf that was supposed to be his mate burst through the door and began attacking him. Yelps and fierce screeches filled the room as the two wolves fought. Fang helped Dakota climb atop a shelf before he leapt into the fight like a rabid beast, tackling and pinning Moon. She screeched, trying her best to claw at his underbelly, but it was no use, as he was too strong. Chapter 6. Losing Our Minds. It was chaos. All the wolves except Dakota were in the tussle, and the hunters were reaching for their guns. Dakota trembled, terrified for his life, as a gunshot rang out and everyone froze as a hunter shot the ceiling. It was silent for a moment. Just a moment, though, as Moon growled at the hunter and got into a crouched stance, ready to pounce. Her sharpened teeth gleamed in the light of the cabin. Moon toppled over, thudding against the ground. Shadow ran to her side, checking her pulse. "She's all right." Shadow let out a shaky sigh of relief. "Yeah, let's just let her rest. Hopefully she's okay," Fang replied. "Yeah, hopefully," Shadow said sorrowfully. With the help of Fang, Shadow carried Moon to the guest bedroom, and everyone went to bed scared for what would come of tomorrow. Dakota lifted his head and yawned, getting up slowly to not wake his father. The sunlight shone through the cracks of the blinds, and the birds chirped peacefully as they flew around gracefully outside. Dakota sighed. At least it's a beautiful morning, he thought to himself. Dakota headed into the bedroom his aunt slept in silently, very careful to not make a sound. Suddenly, her glowing red eyes flashed open before going back to her normal purple eye color. Dakota ducked down under the bed as Moon sat up and yawned. As she slowly became herself again, she got off the bed and stretched before walking out of the bedroom. Dakota sighed of relief, crawling out from under the bed quickly. He slipped out the bedroom and stepped into the sitting room, seeing white tufts of fur in the window of the front door. "Who's that?" Dakota mumbled, before calling one of the hunters to answer the door. The hunter opened the door. "Hello, is my son Dakota here?" Jules said in a soft but clear voice. Chapter 7, Reuniting. And that is where we end today's part 1 of Dakota's story. If you want part 2, comment down below, and I will see you guys on the next one. Thank you so much for watching. Make sure to like, subscribe, comment, and I will see you guys on the next one.